What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection for Game Week 19. So I'm going to run you through how the team is looking, why I'm thinking about buying GABRIEL and spending 3 transfers this week. And I'll also show you how I got on in Game Week 18. I know the Game Week is not completely over yet, by the way. There's still 2 matches to go on Sunday, but all my players have played. So I know exactly how many points I've got, and all the transfers I'm looking at making are for players that have already played. So because of the quick turnaround between game weeks, I thought it was best to get this video out as soon as possible because I've got lots of thoughts about the moves I need to make this week, and then I'll make a few more videos on Monday and Tuesday once all the games have been completed. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you understand. We'll be back to normal soon once the Christmas and New Year period is over. Otherwise, let's get into it. So game week 18 wasn't great for me. I scored 43 points, and that is 43 all out. So all of my players had played by 5 PM on Saturday. I've got no one left to come in. And as it stands, that's a small red arrow. So I've gone from just inside the top 25k to just outside. So not a complete disaster so far, but obviously there's a lot of Sunderland defence owners out there. Calvert-Lewin's been brought recently. There's probably some people playing Rodon, Goodmanson. You've got Crystal Palace defence that's quite highly owned. That red arrow will get worse, but hopefully not in a way where it's a complete disaster. And actually, as it stands, as long as I don't get hugely punished on Sunday, I feel kind of okay about how the week has gone, even though it's a red arrow, because I had 4 transfers. I only used 2 of them. Like, I did think at one point about using all 4 to buy Ekitike, but I only used 2. Ekitike only got an assist. So even though he was a good pick, I wasn't massively punished by him. And one of the players I brought in was Wirtz, who got a 10-pointer. So I think it's just one of those weeks where it wasn't great for a lot of people, unless you played like Dubravka or you bench boosted with Dubravka and Estev, etc. And so, yeah, I feel kind of okay about it. My 2 transfers were Fernandes to Wirtz and Dewsbury Hall to Paquetá. I completely understand that Paquetá is not an amazing pick, but for sub 6 million, I don't think there are many massively standout picks anyway. Like Elliot Anderson, Harry Wilson. I mean, they're all fine, but none of them, in my opinion, are the standout one. So to have Paquetá, who's basically nailed on penalties, I'm kind of okay with that, unless he gets sold in January, and that'll be a little bit annoying. And he's not playing back-to-back 90 minutes every game anymore, but he's still doing enough to warrant the 5.9 million price tag. So I'll kind of take that. Also, Paquetá scored 3 points. So we outscored both Foden and Cunha. So not a complete disaster. And then Fernandes to Wirtz went really nicely. 10-pointer, Wirtz's first goal of the season. He's also going to be a little bit like Bruno Fernandes in terms of when he gets an attack and return, he will often get good bonus as well. We just haven't seen it very much so far this season. So I think he picked up all 3 bonus in that game. So 10 points is nice. The only annoying thing, I did consider Sharda quite a lot last week, and he got a hat-trick. And that is a bit of a killer. And I completely understand. I can't moan. I bought Wirtz. Lots of you did Fernandes to Cunha. He blanked. I bought Wirtz. He got 10 points. I should be happy. I'm an FPL manager. I'm never fully happy. And I'm sure most of you can understand that. Sharda was a serious consideration for me. And part of the reason I was thinking about him over Wirtz was the money saved. Sharda was 1.1 million cheaper. That would have enabled funds for other moves. And as it stands, I could kind of use that money next week. So if I'd gone for Sharda, I'd have the money to make a defender transfer that I want to do, which I'll talk about in a sec. And I would have obviously have more points. And I would have saved a transfer. Because now if I want those funds for a defender move, I've got to free up the money from Wirtz. So I get it. 10 points, should be happy. Never happy. Never completely happy anyway. So Sharda, look, I won't get over it for a few more days. When a player scores a hat-trick that you were so strongly considering bringing in, it's not fun. Like as soon as Paquetá came in for Dewsbury Hall, it was Wirtz or Sharda for that Fernandes move. Look, I got points either way. I will get over it eventually. It might just take me a couple of days. Elsewhere, Vandenberg wasn't in the squad. Bit of a nightmare, but Anderson came on for me for a 5-pointer, so not the end of the world. But I could use Vandenberg in the next few weeks, so hopefully that's not a major issue. Nkapie ended up starting. Timber wasn't in the squad. Calafiori pulled up during the warm-up and came out of the 11. So it actually looked quite good that I had Nkapie, and then he only goes and gets a 1-pointer. Arsenal concede, Raya 2 points. Not great. Van Dijk, I mean, I've brought Paquetá twice this season. So I wildcarded him in game week 4, and I've just bought him last week, and somehow Van Dijk is just a worse pick for me. I've owned Paquetá twice, and Van Dijk is the worst pick I've made all season. He's just been rubbish. Absolutely awful. No DEFCONs recently. No goal from him yet. And he can't keep a clean sheet against Wolves at home. Just, like, pound for pound, one of the worst value picks I've made all season. Just so frustrating because you know there's more points in a player like that. He just hasn't delivered. So, hugely frustrating. Cunha blanked. I mean, not great, but I've had in the previous 3 weeks where I got points from him every single week, so I'm not so worried about it. And also, I thought Man United played really well in the first half. Like, Cunha maybe could have got something there. Second half was a disaster. It was all Newcastle. I think Mason Mount going off was not good for Man United. But Cunha's still got 3 good fixtures coming up. He's probably on penalties. The guy loves to shoot. I'm not concerned about him whatsoever. And then part of the not going for Ekitike thing meant that I kept Thiago, who got an assist and matched Ekitike. And it also meant that I kept Saka. Yes, I could have gone from Fernandes to a really cheap midfielder and done Guiu to Ekitike, but it just didn't feel very good because I still had other issues to deal with. So bringing in Wirtz for a 10-point outscore and Ekitike, then Thiago getting an assist as well, and Saka getting something, 7 points, that felt really good. And by the way, Saka should have had more. And also, Saka's played 390 minutes in a row. I know some of us had concerns about Madueke taking minutes off him. Madueke's not played at all. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but Saka's minutes are really good at the moment. And yes, he's not particularly great value, but I don't think he's really blocking me from anything. If the choice is to have Saka or Ekitike, I'm choosing Saka every single time. So at some point, Saka will probably have to go, maybe to enable triple Arsenal defence, although that doesn't look great right now with the amount of flags they've got, or potentially to Cole Palmer. But until that point, I'm kind of okay holding him. Not every player in your team has to be a super good, valuable player. At some point, you've got to spend your money. And spending it on Saka seems okay right now. So 43 points, red arrow. That red arrow will get worse, but it's not been a complete disaster week so far. If Gay, Lacroix, Richards all score a goal and Calvert-Lewin scores a hat-trick, then okay, maybe it's a bit of a disaster, but hopefully none of those things will happen. So going into game week 19, I've got 3 free transfers and 0.1 million in the bank. And when I look at my defence, I feel like it needs at least 1 transfer this week, maybe 2. But also, depending on injury news, I can maybe just roll. Like, it's one of those weird weeks where there's a lot of different options, and I'm not quite sure which one I will take. But the fact that Gabriel is back now makes me really want to use a transfer. Because I think he will start against Villa at home. And then as long as he can stay fit, he should be pretty nailed like he was before. And Arsenal's next 3 fixtures are not great. It's Villa at home, Bournemouth away, Liverpool at home. They could concede in all of those games. But Gabriel could also score. And as soon as that happens, his price just goes up. I like to roll transfers to put myself in a better position for future weeks. But there are some players I'll happily spend transfers on. Gabriel is one of them. So I'm quite tempted to get him this week. But how I do that, I'll come on to in a second. In terms of the players I've got this week at the moment, Raya against Villa at home, he's going nowhere unless I'm desperate for the money. I'm just not keen on making goalkeeper transfers. I know that cheaper players have done well recently, Verbruggen, Kelleher, Dubravka as well, if you played him against Everton in game week 18. I'm not going to bring any of those players in. I'm just going to play Raya. It's absolutely fine. And then Van Dijk against Leeds at home, he's got to stay because of the fixture on paper this week. And I know that Liverpool conceded 3 to Leeds not that long ago. And I know there's a chance they just don't get a clean sheet this week. But despite how bad he's been, and you do not need to tell me, by the way, I've owned him since game week 4. Not many of you would have had him that long. I know he's been terrible. I know he's really poor value, but I'm taking it on a week-by-week basis. And this week he's got Leeds at home. It's a midweek fixture. He'll definitely start. I'm kind of okay with keeping him. My bigger decision really is, do I free up an Arsenal spot to do Van Dijk to Gabriel next week? I think a lot of Gabriel owners are going to do that. Sorry, a lot of Van Dijk owners are going to do that. They're going to leave Van Dijk for Leeds at home, then they're going to sell him to Gabriel. And I think that's quite good, but I don't think it works for my team. I think I'm better off finding the money to upgrading Capier or one of my other defenders instead. And when I look at Van Dijk, again, please don't tell me how bad he is. I am fully aware. I'm okay to play him against Fulham away. Like, it's a Thursday, Sunday turnaround for Liverpool. I know he's going to play. both of those games. And at some point, you never know. He might pop up with a goal despite the lack of clean sheets, right? Against Arsenal away in 21, I can bench him. As long as Vandenberg's back, I should be able to bench Van Dijk that week. And then it's Burnley at home in 22. So potentially in the next 4 game weeks, I'm going to play him against Leeds at home, Fulham away, Burnley at home. That still feels kind of okay, despite the fact that he's not been good value. And yes, the points have not been there, but that can change. Look at the conversations we had about Sharda last week. Nobody wanted him. Now they probably do. Nobody wanted Wirtz last week. They probably still don't want Wirtz, but fixtures matter. And at some point, Liverpool will start getting the returns for these fixtures. And I know I've been saying that for weeks. I'm not telling you to buy Van Dijk. In fact, do not buy Van Dijk. People will sell him soon. He's not a good pick. Because he's already in my team, he stays. Simple as that. The only thing to consider really is whether I do the Gabriel switch. I'm just not so keen on it. And part of the reason is, when I look at my other 4 defenders in Capier, Vandenberg, Anderson, Senesi, Senesi's got bad fixtures, Anderson's got bad fixtures, Vandenberg is a Dow, and in Capier is only as good as, as long as there's injuries for other defenders. Otherwise, he just doesn't play. So apart from Van Dijk, I've got 4 slightly dodgy defenders. So it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to switch Van Dijk. I think I've got to mess around with the other defenders instead. Now, with Nkapie, he's one of those defenders this week where injury news matters. I think Saliba and Gabriel will start against Villa. So does he play left back? That depends on Calafiori. If Calafiori's a doubt, I think Nkapie will play ahead of Lewis Skelly. I just think that Arteta doesn't want to use Lewis Skelly unless he absolutely has to. But Arteta's also not going to tell us whether Calafiori is definitely out. And so I'm not going to be sure whether Nkapie is going to play. So I'm probably going to sell Nkapie this week. And it will probably be either to Gabriel if I free up money, and I'll talk about how to do that later, or it's going to be to a Newcastle defender. Now, Newcastle are another team where people are not going to be interested because they haven't kept clean sheets recently, etc. But the fixtures are good, and I'm always going to play the fixtures. It's Burnley away, Palace at home, Leeds at home, Wolves away, next 4. That looks pretty good. After that, I sell them. So I'm looking at Lewis Hall potentially at 5.2 million or Chow at 5 million. Now, Lewis Hall is the more exciting pick, absolutely. He's way more attacking than Chow is, but the fitness is a concern. Now, I think it's a little bit like the Mason Mount situation. I think Mount and Hall's minutes are safe because of the lack of options the respective teams have right now. It's whether they can stay fit. So for Lewis Hall, he's actually played quite a bit recently, 90 minutes in each of the last 3 games. In fact, it's 90 minutes in 4 of the last 5. They don't have Dan Burn to play left back at the moment. Liveramento's been injured as well. And when Liveramento's back, presumably he'll just play right back. So competition's not a problem, it's fitness. But the turnaround time for Newcastle's not that bad. Like, it's Tuesday against Burnley. They only played on Friday. So Friday, Tuesday turnaround. Then they don't play again until Sunday. So I'm pretty confident if he stays fit, Lewis Hall's playing Burnley away, Palace at home. Then it's Leeds at home on Wednesday. So maybe there's a slight concern there. But Sunday, Wednesday turnaround, I think he probably just plays. The bigger issue will be the Wolves game in 22. Because when you look at Newcastle's fixtures, including non-Premier League games, they play Leeds on the 7th. Then they play FA Cup on the 10th. Presumably that's the game that Lewis Hall will get a rest. Then they've got Carabao Cup semi-final, which is obviously big because there's a chance of winning a trophy there on the 13th. Then they play Wolves on the 18th. If he gets this break in the FA Cup, I think Eddie Howe will just use him against Burnley, Newcastle, Leeds, Carabao Cup, and then the Wolves game. I mean, they do have Champions League 3 days later, so there is some concern here. I'm very tempted to go for Lewis Hall, but the safer pick is to go for Chow instead. And also, he's a little bit cheaper at 5 million. I don't know. The points have been terrible recently. I just like the next 4 fixtures. And obviously, with Nkapie, I've now got a concern over his minutes. So I don't know. It's not 100% locked in, but I am pretty confident I'm going to buy a Newcastle defender this week. Then I've got Vandenberg flagged. Apparently, he picked up a knock, wasn't ready. I'm not sure, by the way. This is another problem for Game Week 19. I'm not sure we're going to get a press conference for Brentford ahead of the deadline. So the deadline is on Tuesday at 6 o'clock PM UK time. Brentford play on Thursday. I don't know if there's going to be press conferences on New Year's Eve, but there probably will be. So unless Keith Andrews holds his press conference on Tuesday, I'm not going to get Vandenberg information ahead of the deadline. So he's a concern. Anderson's Palace away, Senesi's Chelsea away. So I am tempted to make a double move. Senesi and Nkapie to Gabriel and a Newcastle defender. And the reason that I would sell Senesi is the fixtures coming up are just not great for quite a while. So it's Chelsea away, Arsenal at home. Spurs at home's okay in 21, but it's Brighton away, Liverpool at home after that, sorry. Then after Wolves, it's kind of Villa. So longer term, like 24 onwards, he's actually pretty good 24 onwards. But I think someone like Anderson is probably a little bit better quicker. Like Leeds away in 22, Brighton at home in 23. Although now I look at it, sorry, I'm thinking on the fly now. The next 3 fixtures are not good for Anderson. Then it's an away game against Leeds. And it's also away to Man United in 24 and away to City in 26. Maybe Senesi is actually the better hold. I need to have a proper think about that. Senesi's basically terrible for 5 weeks, apart from 21. He's okay against Spurs at home. I don't mind playing him in that. Would he get sold in January? Maybe. 24 onwards, he actually looks much better than Anderson. Yeah, I don't know about that. Senesi's a bit more money as well, so I get more value. Like, he's 4.7 when I sell him. Anderson's 4.5. That might actually be helpful. I'm pretty sure I sell Senesi. Yeah, so to Lewis Hall or Chow, depending on how much money I've got to spend, and then to Gabriel. Now, Gabriel only just back. Maybe Arsenal manage him, but actually, when you look at the fixtures they've got coming up, like Newcastle, they've got a pretty good turnaround, but actually theirs is even better. So Gabriel got a few minutes against Brighton in game week 18. I'm pretty confident. I could be wrong about this, but I'm very confident. In fact, he's going to start against Villa. The rumours for weeks now have been that he's earmarking a return for that game. They lost to Villa in the reverse fixture. Villa are on a ridiculous winning streak. He's going to play Gabriel, in my opinion. That's on the 30th of December, Tuesday. They don't play till Saturday. That's a good turnaround time. Then they don't play again till Thursday. I think Gabriel starts all 3 of these games, and then he definitely gets rested in the Carabao Cup against Portsmouth. I think it's almost certain. If he's fit, he plays the next 3 Premier League games, gets rested against Portsmouth in the FA Cup. Then it's just about whether he plays the Carabao Cup against Chelsea. That might depend on other players' fitness. Like if Calafiori and Capia are both fit, maybe one of them plays left centre-back ahead of Gabriel. He's going to keep playing most of these Premier League games. Like, why wouldn't he? He's their first choice centre-back. And then even the Champions League game, he'll probably get rested. Then play against Man United, then rested for their last Champions League game, then play against Leeds. I just think he's good to go. So, very high chance I bring Gabriel in this week, and a pretty high chance I bring in Chow or Lewis Hall. Which one of those 2 I go for, by the way, will depend on, 1, how much I want to play it safe in terms of minutes, which would be Chow, but also what attacking change I make. So let's talk about that. So I'm playing a midfield 5 this week. I've got Saka against Villa at home, Wirtz against Leeds at home, Cunha against Wolves at home. Then Foden is away to Sunderland, and Paquetá is home to Brighton. Most of this is fairly straightforward. 4 out of those 5 players are staying this week. The only one that might not is Wirtz. And I know what you're going to say. Selling an attacker before Leeds at home is absolutely crazy. I agree. But I might do it anyway, because if I want to make defender moves, I need some money. So I'll come back onto the Wirtz decision in just a second. Saka, I just do not want to sell anytime soon. And also, he's quite a nice placeholder for Palmer. Now, Maresca said before game week 18 that Palmer could play 90 minutes. He didn't play 90 minutes. He got subbed just after the 70th minute, which is still not ideal moving forward. But I'm really interested to see how Maresca uses him over Christmas. Because if he starts again in 19, that's quite a good indicator for his minutes going forward. Because there's quite a quick turnaround between games for Chelsea. If he gets benched, that's a worry for a few more weeks. So Saka is basically a placeholder for Palmer or even Bruno Fernandes. So until I need the money, I'm just happy to keep Saka. I just don't see a huge issue with having him in my team. Cunha's now got Wolves at home, Leeds away, Burnley away. I'm not going to sell him. He could be on penalties. His minutes are going to be great as long as he can stay fit. Foden, obviously, there was a massive clamour to get him in. He hasn't actually done that well for me since I did that. But as long as he keeps playing 90 minutes every week, there's no reason to sell him either. And then Paquetá just doesn't free up enough money to do what I want to do. And I've only just brought him in. I know it's the same situation with Wirtz, but Wirtz frees up more money. Paquetá doesn't. He's only 5.9 million. And actually, West Ham's fixtures are kind of okay. I know that almost doesn't matter because West Ham are terrible and actually they're the fixtures to target. But Brighton at home, Wolves away, Forest at home, next 3 is okay. And then even then, it's Spurs away, Sunderland at home. So the next 5 fixtures, as long as he doesn't get sold and he stays at West Ham and keeps starting, I'm just going to play him most weeks. And if at some point I pile more money into my defence, I could even maybe play 4-4-2 some weeks. So I don't see Paquetá as a massive problem. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought him in. Let's talk about Wirtz. He, in my opinion, is the best way to free up money if I want to get Gabriel this week. Now, the counter argument will be just don't get Gabriel. That's fine, right? I could do Nketiah to a Newcastle defender and just hope that Vandenberg starts. And if he doesn't, Anderson off the bench is not the end of the world. And then next week I could do Van Dijk to Gabriel. So basically, the move would be Nketiah to, let's just say Chow this week. And then next week I'd have 0.5 million, which is Van Dijk to Gabriel. So I could absolutely do that. And I think that's fine. I actually think that could work quite nicely. But I'm not convinced Vandenberg will start, or at least there's some risk there. And Anderson's kind of rubbish. And also, getting Gabriel in is just nice. And I like Newcastle defence because everyone's so down on them right now. And especially Lewis Hall is a massive differential. So selling Wirtz is not great, but he is probably the worst midfielder I own, kind of medium to long term. Because after Leeds at home, it's Fulham away, then Arsenal away. Like, I'm not bothered about having him for that Arsenal game. And also with Gakpo back now, Wirtz minutes maybe come down a little bit. Like against Leeds at home, it could be a Gakpo, Ekitike, Szoboszlai front three. Now Wirtz will still start. I'm not trying to say he won't, but the subs could happen earlier. I don't know. I'm not... It probably sounds like I'm trying to justify selling him before Leeds at home. Most people should not sell him. Like if I had Saliba instead of Nketiah and Vandenberg was fit, I would probably roll. But I don't have that. Nketiah might not start and Vandenberg's not necessarily fit. So I might sell Wirtz. If I sell him, it'll be for Sharda, which will look like massive points chasing. But if you watched my videos last week, you know how much I considered him. And they've still got 2 home games in the next 3, Spurs and Sunderland, Everton away in between. Chelsea away is not great in 22, but then it's Forest at home. So I could go for Sharda. If I go for Sharda, I have to buy Chow. Okay? So let me just go back to the transfer page. If I go for Senesi and Nketiah out, let's just put Gabriel in for a second, and Hall. If I go for Lewis Hall, then Wirtz has to go to a 6.9 million or below midfielder. So I cannot buy Sharda. If I go for Sharda, it has to be Chow. The other option is to buy Szoboszlai. Now, Szoboszlai's done nothing this season, really, for the amount of minutes he's played. But he is pretty much a 90-minute man every single week. Because of the 5 yellow card suspension, he's just had a rest. So he's going to play 90 minutes in Game Week 19. There's probably not many players we can say about that. Or say that about, I should say. And he's first choice penalty taker as far as we know. He took the last penalty that Liverpool had. And all the key players were on the pitch, apart from Isak, but he's now injured. So with no Saka, Szoboszlai's on penalties. So you've got a 6.6 million nailed on attacker for Liverpool that should mostly not play right back at the moment because they've got Bradley and Frimpong available. Leeds at home next, then Fulham away, Arsenal away, Burnley at home. Then Salah potentially comes back from, well, he will start to come back from AFCON at some point over this run. Then he probably comes back into the team. And Szoboszlai probably loses penalties. But at that point, we're talking like Game Week 23. And even if he doesn't have penalties and he's playing in midfield, hopefully the attacking potential goes up. He'll take some set pieces, etc. So I'm tempted to get Szoboszlai, mostly because I think I want to get Hall over Chow. So that's the 3 moves I'm considering. Wirtz to Szoboszlai, Gabriel for Nketiah, and Hall for Senesi. And then if Vandenberg... I don't think Vandenberg's got a big issue, by the way. If he's back by 21 for Sunderland at home, that allows me to bench Van Dijk for Arsenal away. Look, it's all 3 of my transfers used, and part of it involves selling Wirtz before Leeds at home. It doesn't sound great, but I'm pretty tempted to do it. And I know people are going to say you're never going to do that, but people say that about my moves every single week, and I end up doing something. I'm pretty tempted to do it. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't sound great. I'd rather roll transfers until I'm in a situation where it really needs some like big overhaul. And this is going to be famous last words, but there's not really many other players that I want to buy once I've done that, unless my players start getting injured. There's no one on the horizon that I see I'm going to need to bring in until kind of Game Weeks 22, which would be Chelsea players, like maybe Palmer. like maybe Enzo Fernandez, like maybe Chalobah, like maybe getting rid of Guiu off my bench so I can go 3 Chelsea. Apart from that, who is there a major need for in the next 2-3 weeks? So as long as things go nicely for me and I don't get too many more injuries, which again, famous last words, I should be able to roll in like 2021. And then hopefully I get to game week 22 where Chelsea's fixtures get better and I've got 3 free transfers to play around with. So if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say close to 100% that I bring in a Newcastle defender, but I could just do that for Nketiah. If we're talking about the triple move to get Gabriel, I reckon I'm like already 70 to 80% there. I think it's quite likely. And then up front, I've got Haaland against Sunderland away and Thiago against Spurs at home. Erling Haaland is currently my captain, and I do think that will stick. But if Bruno Fernandes had been fit this week, I'm pretty confident I would have captained him against Wolves at home. So there is a slight temptation to go for Cunha. Man United will not be as good without Fernandes, and if Mason Mount's missing, that's also a bit of a worry. But Cunha will probably play 90 minutes in this game. Wolves at home is decent on paper. He's probably on penalties. There is a temptation to do it, and it's a massive differential. Most people are going to captain Haaland this week. They are not going to put the armband elsewhere. We saw that last week, right? There was a lot of hype about Ekitike. Loads of people brought him in, but most people still captain Haaland. That's what they'll do this week. And I don't think there are many opportunities to go against Haaland that are coming up. Maybe this is one to do it. So I'm slightly tempted by Cunha. I'm also slightly tempted to captain Saka as well, because his minutes have been great. But if he's going to have reduced minutes, this might be the week to do it because it's a quick turnaround for Arsenal. But the fact that Madueke hasn't been used in any of the last 3 games, I don't know, Saka is tempting. The problem is Villa have been doing so well recently. I just don't know if I can back against them. So I'm probably going to keep it on Haaland, but there is a temptation to go to Saka or more likely Cunha just because of the fixture. And Thiago going nowhere. Like, he's just not a terrible pick. I said that last week. I think there was reason for some people to sell him. And if you did the Thiago to Ekitike move, it's not even like massive hindsight. I'm not saying you made a bad move, but Thiago's nailed on. The minutes are good. Hopefully he doesn't get benched over the next few weeks. And he's on penalties. Like, he will just tick over with returns, and he only cost me 6.8 million. So I'm just not going to buy Ekitike. If I was going to do it, I would have done it last week with 4 transfers before he played Wolves. Now I just ignore him. Like, he's a 9.1 million forward with no penalties. I'm probably not going to be massively concerned about that unless a bunch of my midfielders start getting injured. And actually, on the deadline stream for Game Week 18, at one point I was talking about players I was thinking about buying in the future, like a Newcastle defender, maybe Szoboszlai, Schade, Gabriel when he comes back, Palmer if his minutes are good, Enzo Fernandez. And I realised after a few seconds of reading off all these names, at no point did I mention a forward. At no point did I think, oh, I might want that forward. There just isn't any that I'm interested in, apart from Ekitike, and he's just too expensive for my team, the way it's set up. And you can turn around and say Jared Bowen's fine. He's fine, yeah. But he's not 2 transfers to restructure fine. Like, he's fine if you've got a forward that needs replacing, but he's not someone I'm interested in. There is just no other forwards. So I'm really not keen on restructuring at all. Haaland's good. Thiago's good value. Ekitike's fine if you've got the money. João Pedro, probably okay, 22, 24 onwards, maybe. Bowen's okay if you need a forward. Voltemada's got minutes concerns now with Visser. He was subbed on the 67th minute. He's not on penalties. Calvert-Lewin's fine, but the fixtures coming up are not as good as they were. Watkins is 8.5 million, just got benched. No one's interested in Mateta right now. The list goes on. Raul Jimenez has got 2 goals in 2 games, but now he plays Palace away, Liverpool at home, Chelsea at home. The same reason that I dodged Harry Wilson. The fixtures are getting worse, even though Liverpool's a great fixture, as we know. They're just rubbish. I mean, Igor Jesus looked quite good when I watched him yesterday against City, and actually, Forest fixtures are not bad coming up. But again, like, fine. If I need a cheap forward, I'll go and look at Igor Jesus. But I've not got plans to bring him in. So yeah, I just don't see any forward moves. Anyway, I put my team into the My Team tool on Fantasy Football Hub with the Szoboszlai, Hall, and Gabriel transfers put in place. So this leaves me with no transfers after Game Week 19. Well, obviously I'll have 1 for Game Week 20. But I think the team looks quite good. I do wonder if psychologically I'm talking myself more into the Wirtz move because I will buy a different Liverpool attacker who will still have leads at home. So when I look at my team, I still see that Leeds fixture. Maybe that's how I'm justifying getting rid of Wirtz. But I think it looks really nice. Like Hall, Van Dijk, Gabriel backline this week is pretty decent. Game week 20, if I just optimize the team here, would be the same back three. So Gabriel against Bournemouth away, Hall against Palace at home, Van Dijk against Fulham away. Fixture-wise, it's not actually amazing. But in game week 20, I don't think there are that many amazing defender. Like, if you've got Van Heck against Burnley at home, that's quite nice. Maybe Dorgu. I haven't even mentioned Dorgu in this video, by the way. 4.1 million, played right wing. He will continue to play. He has to. Man United have got too many players missing at the moment. And if he continues with the back four, it will be at right wing. So Dorgu's quite interesting. Like, for my own team, I could go Senesi to Dorgu and Capier to a Newcastle defender and delay Gabriel. I'm just not a big fan of making the move that way around. Anyway, you know, if you've still got Van de Ven against Sunderland at home, it's fine. Either way, my point is my backline doesn't look great for game week 20, but I don't think it's going to look great for anyone. Then you've got Paquetá against Wolves, Szoboszlai versus Fulham, Cunha versus Leeds, Saka versus Bournemouth, Foden Chelsea, Haaland Chelsea, Thiago. It's all fine. Game week, so I'm hopefully going to roll. Game week 21, 2 free transfers. This is the week where if Vandenberg's back, I bench Van Dijk. So my backline is Gabriel against Liverpool. We never worry about benching Gabriel. Van de Ven, Sunderland at home. Hall, Leeds at home. Hub have actually put Dubravka in ahead of Raya. I'm not sure I would do that, but it's a consideration. And then the midfield mostly looks fine again. Szoboszlai's got Arsenal away, but he's a penalty taker, so I'm not going to be as worried about playing him. Thiago's got Sunderland at home. That's pretty good. The week that Ekitike plays Arsenal away. And then when you get to 22... it's then 3 free transfers. This is maybe a week that I play 4-4-2. So I play Anderson against Leeds away rather than Paquetá against Spurs away. Would I actually do that? Maybe. I'd have to decide then. And this is also when Man United's fixtures start to get a little worse. They've got Man City followed by Man City at home followed by Arsenal away. So game week 22, 3 free transfers. Maybe this is the week that I do like Cunha to Enzo Fernandez potentially. And let's say that Palmer is really shown his fitness. Maybe I do Saka to Palmer. Maybe that's a move. I wouldn't be able to get a Chelsea defender right away because I'd have to deal with Guiu, but maybe that could wait until later because my backline in 22 is Van Dijk, Burnley at home, Gabriel, Forest away, Anderson, Leeds away, Hall, Wolves away. Look, when you make 3 transfers and leave yourself with only 1 the next week, things can go horribly wrong. There could be a lot of injuries. There's quick turnarounds between game weeks at the moment. That runs the risk of more injuries. We should be aware of that. But on paper, I think the team looks fine for 2021 and then going into game week 22, hopefully 3 free transfers. And like I said, I don't see a need to worry about Ekitike now. I didn't buy him before Wolves, so I'm not going to buy him now. You know, if Saka was to get injured, maybe I'd consider it. But until he does, like even if that happens, I'd probably look at Palmer. So, yeah. I'm very tempted by that triple. I might end up rolling. I'm not completely rolling out. I could roll. I could do Capier to Hall, or I could do the triple change. But the triple change is what I'm favouring right now. Interestingly, by the way, I checked my AI suggested transfers on Hub as well. If you want to check all this stuff out, by the way, link in the description below. We recommend making no transfers. So usually I want to roll, and it recommends me a transfer. This week I want to make 3, and it's saying make 0. I mean, the team does look good on paper if they all start. We'll see what happens. I'll give it a few more thought, a bit more thought over the rest of today once all the matches are finished, and obviously through Monday to the deadline. But I wanted to get this video out because there's not much time till the next deadline. All my players have played anyway, and none of the players I'm considering are playing on Sunday. Like I've got no interest in Sunderland, Spurs, Palace, and Leeds players for the most part. I mean, Kudus maybe something. I don't know. Probably not. Right. So. Yeah, I'll leave it there. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you tomorrow for transfer tips, I think, and then final thoughts on Tuesday, plus a deadline stream on Tuesday as well. I'll see you then.